everyone, I am Kimberly, the 5-Minute NP. The 5-Minute NP was born out of my belief that small, incremental changes can drastically change the trajectory of your life. Our genes do not have to determine our lifespan. My goal through this podcast is to act as a roadmap that bridges the gap between knowledge and action, leading to you living your healthiest, happiest, longest life. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. In this episode, I was honored to interview Jimmy, well known on Instagram as That Meditation Guy. Jimmy shares how for years he was crippled by insomnia, and finally, after hearing for so long that meditation could treat his problem, he tried multiple courses, books, and techniques, but nothing worked until one teacher from an ancient Vedic tradition showed him a different way. 9 years later, meditation has become his way of life, and he now teaches others the most powerful meditation technique there is for creating a deep inner silence and stillness. In this episode, he shares more about this, as well as the physical, emotional, and spiritual benefits of meditation, obstacles to overcome in our practice, and how to stay motivated, the 4 categories of meditation and how to find our style, and how his technique differs from others, and a lot more. Enjoy this episode, and remember to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It is my heart to help you live your happiest, healthiest, longest life. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for talking today. I can't wait to have this conversation. I thought we would just start out the first few minutes learning about you, your background, and what drew you into meditation.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my friends would probably say that I was the least likely person to get into meditation you could ever imagine. In my 20s and going into my early 30s, I was really into the party lifestyle and all that. And previous to that, I'd had a pretty bad insomnia problem. Through my early days, even at school, I can remember it, but that got worse and worse in my 20s, especially because I was into the party lifestyle, going to Ibiza and DJing and all the parties and things. Over time, it just got worse and worse and worse. And at some point, which would have been about 9 years ago now, I just decided I had to fix it. Now, I was the least spiritual person you could ever imagine. So meditation wasn't the first thing I would have thought of. First, I went looking for any kind of pills I could take or anything that would help me to sleep, but nothing really worked. And so I kept reading about, meditation will help you calm your mind. It will help you sleep. It's all scientifically proven these days. It's not just some hippie thing. And so I started playing around with that and trying, there was no apps back then really, but it was YouTube videos and audio CDs, things like that. And I had some success. There were some nights it would work, some nights it wouldn't work, but that gave me enough to think, okay, let's try a bit more. So then I started doing courses, and I did mindfulness courses and various other things. And at some point I stumbled across Vedic meditation, which is a very calming, gentle, very easy style of meditation, very simple style of meditation. And that just did it for me. In 4 days, I was sleeping like a baby. And I just thought, right, well, I've got to keep this up because I've got to make sure this insomnia problem doesn't come back. But the more I did it, the more and more I did it, I found not just the sleeping problem went, but my whole life just started to become more joyful and effortless and easy. And all of these odd things started happening. Like I used to drink every single night, at least a bottle of red wine. And suddenly I was just not fancying it anymore. And I thought, isn't that strange? There's been absolutely no effort here. I'm just going to leave it. And similar things with diet. And life just got easier. And years later, I started to look at the original teacher of this style of meditation and what he said about it. And this is exactly what he said would happen. I didn't know that, of course, at the time. But the more I read about him and listened to what he was saying, I thought, this was exactly what happened to me, but I just didn't know that that's what I was going to get. And so, after a while, I just fell in love with meditation generally and with that particular style. And it just was the most normal thing in the world for me to start teaching people.
Wow.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, what I'm kind of known for now is talking about the overlap between different styles of meditation and trying to demystify the whole thing, because lots of people are discovering it on apps and various other things. And then they're coming to people like me with questions, wondering, how does mindfulness and transcendental meditation and yoga nidra, where does that fit into the Wim Hof method and all of this, these things that are coming out? So I like to explain that to people as best as I can. And that's, I guess, what I'm becoming known for a little bit. Yeah.
How long has it been then since you started? How long have you been doing this?
So I started about 9 years ago, but I only started teaching 4 years ago. So the vast majority of my time has been just my own practice and experimenting for my own self to see what I could get. Well, for a lot of, when I say see what I could get, what I mean is for a long time, I was fell into this trap of trying to get something out of it. Like, how deep can I make the meditation go? You know, if I keep going on retreats, where will it take me to? And that's a fun, kind of interesting experiment to do, but also a bit of a trap. At some point, I just let all of that go and just realized I was perfectly happy with everything as it is. And that's when I thought, oh, now I want to teach, because it feels like I've got everything that I need from this now, and I'd just like to pass that on to other people. So
yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Like when we think of meditation, I think you do, or at least me personally, you kind of go into it with all these expectations, like you're looking for something, but really the benefit probably comes, like you said, like when you let go of that and you just do it. I think with meditation, a lot of us do think we do have all of these myths and ideas. Like for me, it was always like, okay, that's for some spiritual person, some already calm or chill person. Not for me, where my mind is, a very busy place all the time. I can't see like calming those thoughts, but yet that's exactly why I want to learn more about it. And, get to that point, like you're saying, more of that spiritual aspect. And I'm looking forward to talking about that with you today. I mean, definitely I want to know more about the physical and emotional benefits of meditation, but also that spiritual place that you can get to ultimately. Could you just start talking about meditation in itself, what it's all about, and then maybe go into the style that you teach? Or I know there's different styles, so maybe touch on the different styles and then move into what you specifically teach.
yeah, no problem at all. So you can look at meditation as fitting into 4 different categories, really. You could think of it all. The first category as being mindfulness, concentrating on the present moment, focusing on your breath, that kind of thing. Or you could think of the next category as being the ones where you kind of styles where you're imagining something, or imagining yourself in a situation, or imagining another person and sending them loving, kind intentions. Or if you're an athlete, imagining, picturing yourself running a race, So there's the present moment, or there's one where you're working with an image or something like that. There's also working with energy in the body. So types of meditation that involve the breath, that kind of thing, would fall into that category. And then finally, the category which I call Transcendence, which is meditation styles known as Transcendental Meditation, Vedic Meditation, or I call it deep meditation. They're all the same technique, really, but taught by different organizations and in slightly different ways. But what they do is they try and give you this experience of taking a kind of inner journey where you lose your sense of self. So it's different from the mindfulness, in that the mindfulness, you're paying attention to what's going on, and you're observing, and you're focusing, and you're staying in the present moment. With transcendental meditation, or whatever name you want to give it, you're turning the focus inwards, and you're letting go of all of it and allowing yourself to move into that place of silence or nothingness. So you could put almost all meditation types into one of those 4. And so, that's kind of how I look at it. Now, it's not a case of you have to pick one and say, right, this is mine forever and that's it. You can move around in between them. You can combine them if you like. And if you look at the ancient texts, for example, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he put together a whole kind of program of how you move into higher states of consciousness. And that involved, the postures that we in the West call yoga. In India, they call asana. But it also involved the breath work that's now popular, and also the concentration and the calming down. So there are ways to combine it all further down the line. But at the beginning, really what you want to start with is just a very simple technique, whichever one appeals to you. And then just follow that. Whatever charms you, whatever feels right, go with that. And usually that will lead to something more. Yeah.
Is it good to mix different styles? And how do you know what fits you, what certain style fits you? Like, how do you know?
Good question. I wouldn't say mixing them at first is a good idea. No, that would be for something for down the line. But in terms of how you know, the way I think of it is, if somebody comes to me and says, what kind of meditation should I do? I would say, well, what is it you're looking to get out of it? And if they said, let's pick two extremes. If they said, oh, I just want to get enlightened. I've been reading about Buddha and I want to deconstruct my sense of self and know the truth about who I am and become enlightened like he did. I'd say, okay, well, I'm not really the guy for that. There are better teachers, monastics. I can point you in the right direction. If you're willing to spend your life, all day, every day in pursuit of that goal, I can show you the direction for that. And then if somebody else might come to me and they'll ask a question like, Jimmy, I'm just tired all the time and I just want to relax and I just want to feel less stressed. And can you just help me? I've got 3 kids and I don't have much time. Can you help me with that? I'd say, okay, that's where you want to do a practice like the one I teach, because it's, 20 minutes twice a day, sitting in a comfortable position. And it's a very simple, easy technique, and it will calm you right down. And then you can go back into your life and get on with it. So you're not making your life about meditation. It's just your tool that you can use to go out and enjoy the life that you've already got. And then, of course, there's a broad spectrum in between those 2 points, and branching out into other areas as well. So yeah, what the person wants out of it is really important. You can almost diagnose it in a sense. If somebody came to me specifically and said, look, I'm doing breath, focusing on my breath, and it's great, but I'd also like to build more compassion. I'd say, oh, look up the Buddhist practice of metta bhavana. You will realize that they have a practice already made, you can use out of the box, and you can add it onto what you're doing. And that will help you build compassion and love and kindness into your life. So there's various different practices that you can point to and say it will bring that specific result. And the cool thing about where we are now is that there's a fair bit of research going around on these, usually the ancient styles, that will tell us that, yeah, they really work. They do this to your brain, this to your physiology, and a whole load of first-person accounts of how people's lives have changed. That's another way that I got started in this, actually, by talking about the scientific research. I was kind of more interested in that than anything else. The spiritual side of it only became interesting to me later, when I had some experiences which couldn't be explained by looking at scientific papers.
Yeah. I think in this day and age, so many people deal with anxiety disorders and stress. So with that, is there a certain one that's best for like an anxiety disorder or something along that line? Is that what the one you teach is best for this type of problem?
I wouldn't say there's definitely one that's right, because we all have such different minds, different states of consciousness, and our minds and our bodies are connected as well. And so we hold a lot of our stress and tension and everything, our unprocessed emotions in the body. And so the meditation, just like a pharmaceutical, will act differently for every single person. So one person might find it very soothing and calming and enjoyable to focus on the breath. They might, instantly get their anxiety down doing that. Whereas another person with anxiety might focus on the breath. And because in the past they've found they hyperventilate when they get stressed, the breath may be a reminder of that, and suddenly they'll get more wound up and more anxious. So for that person, you'd say, okay, you could focus on body sensations, something like that. And that may be helpful. But again, same thing. Some people may get very big and uncomfortable sensations in their body related to their mental state. And so for them, it's not right. So you may have to explore with this kind of thing. The style of meditation I'm teaching, where you're using a Sanskrit mantra, repeating in the mind, but in a very specific way, which allows you to kind of fall into a state of rest where you lose the mantra, essentially. That tends to work very well for people with anxiety. I can't explain exactly why, but it just seems to work well. But each person will have to play around with this and find their own way of getting that peace.
I think, I want you to talk about some physical benefits, but I wanted to ask you, you hear meditation's great, like we were talking about for anxiety and stress, but is it realistic or reasonable to try to meditate when you're in that very stressful state? Like, is it really possible to really meditate when you're so stressed out? I mean, do you have the ability? Because it almost seems like it would be stressful trying to meditate when you're stressed out. Like, am I doing it right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. Yeah. So this is why I don't think it's a great band-aid in a sense. If you suddenly get an anxiety attack, then try and meditate. That's not going to work. Right. So you have to start with the meditation when you're already calm. Okay. And eventually you'll get the practice and you'll understand it. And then when you do become anxious, you'll have that place to go. Okay. So yeah, you don't want to suddenly open up your meditation app the first time you get an anxiety attack. I mean, it may work, but that's the way I look at it. And also, with some styles of meditation, like the deep meditation, you can trigger a biological process known as the relaxation response. So you've probably heard of the fight or flight response. Yep. When you're under attack and all of your stress hormones kick in to keep you alive and thriving and all the rest of it. Well, we actually have an opposite to that called the relaxation response. You may know this. Mm-hmm. Well, that kicks in around the 12 to 15 minute mark when you're doing certain types of meditation, like deep meditation. So if you keep doing that every day, twice a day, triggering that relaxation response, where you're triggering these, sort of happy hormones to flood your system and you're clearing out your stress hormones, and over time, your baseline mental state will just change. Just from a scientific perspective, you will become more calmer just because of that reason. So your anxiety and those other problems should start to clear up on their own if you just keep triggering that, is one of the theories. And of course, if you practice being indifferent to thoughts as they come and go, that will also help you. Because for a lot of people with anxiety, it's really the thoughts becoming out of control and unmanageable. Yeah. So it definitely helps in many ways, but may need some playing around with what's right for you, and best to do it when you're calm so that you can access it when you're in the stress state.
Yeah. I want to talk about the specific type that you teach. So what does transcendence mean? And I guess you were talking about how it overlaps. Can you just talk a little bit more specifically on what that looks like, or what that all means, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I come across quite a lot is people will send me a message and they'll talk about their practice and they'll be saying, oh, it's really great. I can get to this ultimate stage where there are no thoughts. And I say, all right, what does that feel like? And they say, oh, it's so peaceful. It's so lovely. There are no thoughts. Now, what the person hasn't understood, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's really a great, amazing thing to get to. But there is a stage further than that where you can lose it all, really. Because when you're in that place where you think, oh, I'm having this lovely empty mind with no thoughts, that means you've got rid of all your thoughts apart from that last one, the thought of no thoughts, in a sense. So transcendence means to take that last leap beyond that as well and have a complete cessation of experience. So that would show up as you meditating, do it using the practice as I explain it or another similar teacher explains it, and eventually coming around in the meditation and thinking, oh, hang on, what was I doing? And last thing you remember is you were meditating, and now you're thinking, oh, where am I? What happened then? And then you go back into it and you carry on. In that short period, you had a complete lack of all experience. Your experience of life comes through the filter of your thinking mind. And in that point, when you had that cessation, then you lost it all. You went beyond the thinking mind. The thinking mind was switched off. You were still conscious. You weren't asleep, but you did kind of blink out of existence for a moment. And that's what transcendence means, really.
Wow. So how long does it take to get to that point? Is it, and also, you hear different things say, even if you meditate for a minute or 2 minutes, is it most important is about the time that you meditate or the consistency of practicing and doing it every day?
They both play a factor. So you don't have to meditate for hours on end or anything like that. 15, 20 minutes is enough to trigger some good physiological response and to get you into a good place mentally. So if you're doing this kind of meditation, no problem at all if you're doing, just 20 minutes, because to do too much of this actually can leave you a little bit too spaced out and can make you a little bit ineffective in your work. And so we want people to be thriving in their life, to be present with their loved ones and be able to work. So yeah, we don't want people to go too over the top on that. So 20 minutes twice a day seems to be a kind of perfect amount that people can fit into their lives, that they get enough of a hit to make it worthwhile doing it. So there's kind of an ROI there. And it's enjoyable. It doesn't feel like a slog or anything. And if you do it twice a day, then you get one in the morning. So you enter your day feeling energized and calm and refreshed and ready to go. And then you do one in the afternoon. So you sail through your afternoon into your evening. That's the theory of how to time it. So yeah, you can do more. You could go on retreats and do huge amounts, and then you take it to a bit of a different level. Then you can really see what this does to your mind and your body and see what the effect of that is. But you also have to be a little bit careful, because when you do this kind of meditation, you're kind of experiencing a stress release. You're bringing up a stress release. You're letting your unprocessed emotions that are held in the body go. And sometimes that can be a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes those emotions, as you let them go, might have some of the same flavor on the way out that they had on the way in. And so it's not unusual for me to teach someone to meditate and they think, oh, I can't wait to get all blissed out and happy. And for 4 days while I'm teaching them, they're fatigued and they're tired and there's some tears coming and they're a bit confused. And so they have to be reassured. No, this is okay. You're going through a transition. This will clear up in no time and you'll be fine. So that's a side of it that people often don't know about. But I like to talk about it because I want people, for me, it helped me realize it was a real thing. When that happened, I thought, oh, okay, this what they're saying is true. This isn't just relaxing with my eyes closed. Something big is happening here.
Right. I saw something on one of your posts about, or a video you did about awareness. Is that what you're talking about? What did you mean by that? Because to me, awareness or self-awareness is where the change really starts to take place, as far as just becoming more self-aware. Is that what you mean? What do you mean by awareness?
I can't remember what the post was mean. It could mean a couple of things, but generally speaking, if I'm using that word, I might be talking about just how you relate to life and the things in your life. That probably was what I was talking about. So that was the big change for me, really. Once I got into this meditation and I started sweeping away all the mental clutter and seeing through all of the storylines that my mind was throwing up, then I was able to see quite clearly my destructive behavior patterns, destructive patterns in my relationship. And everything just calmed down and got easier from then on. I didn't really I didn't really have to try. This is one of the great things about this meditation, is if you just de-excite the nervous system and calm the mind down, a lot of these things just start to happen naturally over time, because you become quiet inside and you become less reactive. You're practicing twice a day, every day, to experience thought, but to not get wrapped up in thoughts, to just be indifferent. And that's a very useful tool when you're in your life and stressful things come along. You have the choice whether or not to listen to the thoughts or be indifferent to the thoughts. So it's a skill that transfers over out of your sitting practice into your normal life in that sense.
How do you assess the quality of your meditation, or like, what do you expect initially? I know the first few times I tried it, I don't know if I expected some out of body experience. I don't know what I expected, but really it was kind of like, okay, I did that. Let me get back to my life now. I didn't really feel the effects of it. So I guess what I'm asking is, like, how do you assess like the quality? What do you expect at first?
Yeah, good question. So the way I see it is you assess whether the meditation is working for you by how things are changing in your life outside of the meditation process. Having really blissful, good, no thoughts meditations is not the way to judge it, because you will sometimes have good ones that are nice. You will sometimes have bad ones, well, seemingly bad, because they're thought filled. But in reality, these are just labels we're adding ourselves. In reality, the body and the mind is getting what it needs. And if it just so happens that there's some internal drama being created when you meditate, then that's just what had to happen. That's the only thing that could happen, because that's what you're carrying and that's what needs to be processed. So definitely don't judge whether the meditation is good by how it feels when you're doing it. Lots of thoughts generally will mean lots of stress release. So that's good for you anyway. You're processing what needs to be processing and you're letting it go. Equally, a very quiet, bliss-filled, enjoyable meditation is great, because it boosts your confidence and belief in the whole thing. It will motivate you to do it more, and the effects of that will last, making you a more happy, calm, energized individual, more connected to other people. So both kinds of meditation and anything in between have their place. So the best way to do it is you see how your meditation changes things outside. And usually what I find is it's people's relatives will mention it. The relative who was joking and making fun of you for starting this journey, 3 months later will be asking you questions. If you stick to it, you take it seriously, and you've got the right technique and everything, they're the people who will be coming back and saying, oh, how did that thing work out for you? You seem different. That happens more often than you would believe. Quite often on my courses, I'll have somebody do it, and then it'll be their partner, and then it'll be their parent. And then I do these group meditations afterwards, and they'll have the whole family on there in different rooms.
That's awesome. I think one thing I thought was great, and kind of how I pictured getting to that point, as opposed to you actually had a picture and this person was like saying, why aren't you neurotic like I am? And you're like, well, no, I mean, like, I think that was kind of a good summary of what meditation does for you. It's not that suddenly you have no stress in your life. Everything is just falling right into place for you. It's just a different way of dealing with it, right?
That's another weird thing that I noticed was, once I became a lot less stressed out and bothered by the world, not that I'm perfect in any way, I still have the full range of human emotions, but just compared to what I was, it's a different world. And then when I go and I speak to old friends or people who don't do it, and they tell me about all their stresses and problems and everything, I find like, oh, I wish I could give you this thing in pill form. I wish you could see through it all in the way that it's kind of happening to me now, but you can't. And so the only thing you can do in those situations is just listen and be compassionate and, offer advice, I suppose, if they're open to that and they want that. But there's this tendency to want to just say, oh, you've got to learn meditation. And after a while, I realized I've become that annoying person in my friendship group who's always telling people they've got to do this magical new thing. Right. So after a while, I sort of went, okay, no, I'll just be the thing. And if people come to me and they ask about it, that'll be fine. But I'm no longer going to evangelize. And that's kind of why I like what's happened on social media, because I can just say all my stuff there. And the people who it lands with, they can come and find me and talk to me and do something with me. And the people where it doesn't land and they don't hear that message, that's fine. They'll go and hopefully find something else that would help them.
Yeah. Do you feel like people give up on meditation too soon because they're not seeing results, or, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I did it, I didn't feel any different, so it doesn't work.
I think that would have happened to me actually, because I was playing around with different techniques for a while at the beginning. And then I booked myself onto a course, and the course was expensive. I think it was like £400 or something for 4 days. And at the time that was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, but I really wanted it because, insomnia, you got to fix it. It ruins your whole life.
Yeah.
And so I went on this course, and the whole way through it, I kept thinking, yeah, they seem like nice people, but this is too simple. This is not going to work. I've wasted this money. But after the course was finished, I thought, well, I do feel a bit more relaxed. Yeah. And since I can't get the money back, I'm just going to stick with it. They said 3 months. If I stick with it for 3 months, then maybe something magical will happen. But almost straight away after the course was finished, I could feel a difference. And I was still questioning it, like, oh, is it just a placebo? Because I paid the money, I stuck with it. And then after 3 months, my whole mindset, my life, everything had kind of changed for the better. And I was just thinking, oh, I'm so glad I stuck with it. But I don't think I would have if I hadn't paid an amount which, was meaningful to me, which slightly hurt me a little bit. So yeah, I sometimes have this debate in my mind about whether I should charge more to make people more stick to it more. But no, I'm happy with where I'm at. Actually, people seem to be sticking with it that I teach. So yeah, I think I've got it pitched at the right place. But yes. something that makes you go through the process. Maybe that's a payment, or maybe it's a long retreat where you suffer a little bit. But yeah, something that positions the meditation in your mind as important and something you've got to stick to is definitely helpful. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the immediate effects that people feel with meditation? And then obviously some of the longer term benefits. And does it typically take a few weeks, a few months to start getting some of those long-term benefits?
Well, it's right across the board. So let's say I taught 10 people in a group. You'd get probably a couple of people who are really going through a heavy on stressing process, processing their emotions by it. So they're not happy at all. They're tired and they're fatigued and they're emotional and they're wondering whether this was a good idea. And then you'll have some people who are kind of somewhere in the middle. They're okay. They're not feeling much. They're not sure. And then you'll have some people who are really enjoying it. And then there'll be like one person who's having some very deep, profound spiritual experience. They're being filled with light or something like that, and warmth and light and bathed in some glow. And the meditation only feels like a minute long. And they tell their story and everybody's because I want to be that person.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Like, that's what I want.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you'll get that whole range. So I can never tell what it's going to be like. One person will say, oh, wow, you gave me that mantra. And then I didn't do anything. The mantra just did itself. And I fell into this black hole of bliss. And the next person will say, oh, I hated it. I couldn't remember the mantra and I was tired and bored. So it really is different for every single person. But that's why the course is 4 days long, because it's 4 90-minute sessions. And over those sessions, I'm going to use every tool that I can use, every little exercise, every explanation, slides, diagrams, guided meditation, everything to try and get all of those 10 people to at least be in a place where they can experience a quiet mind and some inner stillness and get something beneficial from it. So whether they get complete bliss and, paradise, or whether they just get a nice bit of a quiet mind, I can never tell. But as long as I get something positive for everyone, I'm kind of happy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like complete bliss in 4 days would be pretty amazing.
happens, actually. You'd be
Wow,
surprised.
that's so cool.
Although you've got to bear in mind, quite a lot of the people who do my course aren't complete beginners. So they've been on retreats and they've done courses, and some of them have been at it for a few years, and they've got somewhere, but they're not sure if they're missing something. So, and some people just like trying stuff, some people
Yeah.
just say, oh, well, I found you interesting and you seem to be teaching something I don't know, so I want to try it, those people, yeah, they tend to take to it very, very quickly. But it's different for everyone.
So I want to talk about some of the obstacles to meditation, such as, for me, what I notice is these intrusive thoughts. Like, it's very hard, or maybe just for me, to get those thoughts out of my mind when I'm trying to do this. So how do we overcome that? And what are some of the common obstacles to meditation?
Okay, so in terms of thoughts, the most important thing in the style of meditation that I'm teaching is to not try and get rid of them. Don't try and suppress them in any way. Don't try and observe them. It's the phrase I like to use is that thoughts can come and talk to you, but you just don't talk back. So you just want to give up all of your resistance, completely give up your resistance. And if you remember, I said that thoughts and mental drama can be a side effect of the stress release, the processing of internal emotions.
Okay.
So in that case, thoughts are really not a bad thing. They're a good thing in a sense. So you can follow your practice and allow thoughts to come and go, and just have a deep realization that the thoughts are just irrelevant. Like, you have no control over the thoughts coming and going anyway. Right. So the whole thing about where people beat themselves up about having the thoughts and not being able to get rid of them is like beating yourself up because it started raining outside when you were meditating or something like that. You have literally no control. And so once you realize that, you can let go of the storyline that says, I'm doing this wrong, or I'm a bad person because I can't do this, or I'm not the meditation type. When you accept your mind and you work with the mind as it is without wishing it were different, things just get much, much easier. And so that's the kind of meditation I'm teaching. Is not for monastics. It's not for people who go on retreats for 3 years. It's for normal people who just want to get some peace and calm with their own mind and with their own body. And I can teach them a way to be with the mind, working with the natural tendency of the mind to calm down if it's just left alone. So we don't really even need to train the mind or observe the mind, actually. You can just work with the mind as it is and just become indifferent to what's going on in the mind. And that's kind of a relief.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because with the thoughts, you always are hearing, control your thoughts, don't let this into your mind. And then you almost feel, like you said, bad for having the thought. So it's this vicious cycle, or I guess, of like the thought thing. So it's very, I guess, freeing when you're like, okay, just let them happen. That's so good.
I remember when I first started, I had this same problem. I was convinced that the thoughts were a problem. And so I remember I was doing a guided meditation, listening to something about focusing on your breath, I think it was. But I decided to imagine like a glass bowl over my head. And I imagined myself pushing thoughts out and then not allowing them to come back in. And I created this whole drama where I was like fighting to keep them out of this thing. And, imagining that they couldn't get in. And when one got in, it was like, no. Right. And I was trying to just create something that I thought was right. But when a teacher showed me how to meditate properly and showed me that I can just let these thoughts come and go, and I can even be absorbed in the thought and then realize and let it go. And that's not a problem, because what the only problem is when I get attached to this idea that I should be having them. So that in itself changed everything for me. Yeah. And it just got better and better from there, really.
Yeah, that's so good. One other thing, like as far as obstacles, how do you overcome like lack of motivation to do it? I know some days, even with myself, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And other days it's, I just not that motivated. So how do you get into that, overcome that lack of motivation sometimes?
There's a few things you can do. I think doing a course is good when you put yourself through a process with some other people. And if that, whoever runs that course has some kind of support network set up for you, like monthly group meditations or something, that's very helpful. But even without that, I'd say the best way to do it is to plan it so it becomes routine, kind of like in the same way that brushing your teeth is routine. You just wouldn't miss brushing your teeth, would you?
Yeah.
So for me, meditating first thing in the morning before brush, like, well, I used to get up and like brush my teeth and then meditate. And I still do that now, although it depends. Sometimes I do some yoga and things in the morning. It's kind of thing. But first thing in the morning, if you can build it in, even if it's just a short meditation, 15 minutes, something like that, then you're starting your day in that state. And if you want to do a second meditation, you'd be more likely to do it because you will have had this nice, enjoyable experience early in the morning. So yeah, building it into your day in a way that's just, you don't have to think about it. It's just there is a nice, easy way to do it. And also sometimes you might have to get creative. So some of the people I've taught in the pre-pandemic days anyway, they would find inventive ways to go meditate when they were at work. They might go and sit in their car in the car park for 15 minutes while nobody's around, or go into I think one guy had a prayer room in his work and he would go in there and meditate, and that kind of worked. So people find these inventive ways, but before that, you need to see some ROI. I think you need to feel a big difference. And so that's why courses, retreats, or something like that usually have a better impact than just teaching yourself with a little bit here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I was trying to use an app, and even with that, I'm like, and then you're hard on yourself because you can't. It's like this whole vicious thing. You're like, why can't I do this? So that's a good idea. I was going to ask you, is it better to meditate in the morning or at night? But according to you, it's better to do it twice a day.
Yeah, ideally, I would do it 20 minutes in the morning before breakfast, 20 minutes in the afternoon. This isn't something I came up with. This is came out of the tradition of Transcendental Meditation, and it's been taught that way since the 1960s, since it was brought to the West. And so the person who taught me to meditate and taught me to be a teacher came out of that tradition. He's no longer a part of it, and I'm not a part of any big organization either. But all of those meditation types that use a mantra in the way that I teach it come from this one particular teacher called Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And it's just kind of filtered down into many different to teachers who teach it under different names now. So yeah.
It's amazing how you can just ramble off those kind of names. What was that? Who was that? I wanted to ask you specifically the type of meditation that you teach. Is that one more beneficial, or how powerful is meditation for those who have experienced past traumas, chronic pain issues, maybe? I mean, certainly in my field of work, obviously people deal with chronic pain and all different types of things. So how powerful is meditation for those issues?
I believe for chronic pain, it's amazing, but different techniques will be right for different people. So there's a guy named John Kabat-Zinn who in the 1970s, I think, made a course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And that was originally to help people in the healthcare system who had chronic pain, who weren't getting the help they needed from the traditional route. And that's hugely popular now. I've been through that course myself, and it's really good. Also, in the tradition of meditation that I'm teaching, one of the researchers found that he could help people with chronic pain by getting them to use visualizations and affirmations in the post-meditation state. So I teach a little bit of that on my course as well. So I haven't had a huge experience working with people who have chronic pain, but in terms of the research and the papers that I've read and the history of this thing, it certainly seems to be a definite avenue that people should look down. Yeah. In terms of trauma and mental illness, that's a little bit different. You have to be a bit more careful. because people with trauma sometimes go towards mindfulness and meditation as a way to deal with their problem, but often they can be re-triggered and re-traumatized if they put themselves into situations which are too intense, too difficult. So for example, if you go and do a 10-day silent retreat in a style of meditation called Vipassana, which is mindfulness really, you would have to sign a bunch of forms that, you know, make you promise that you haven't got mental health problems, because they know that people can lose it a little bit on these things when you're sitting for 10 hours a day, you know, with the back straight, not moving, dealing with your own internal world. If you're not in a strong mental place going into that, that could make things a lot worse. What I'm teaching people is very, very gentle and easy. So I teach a fair few people with PTSD and anxiety, and the main thing I say to them is just, you have full permission to stop the meditation at any point. If you want to bring yourself out of it, you can bring yourself out of it. Look around the room, scratch your fingernails on the palms of your hands to bring you into your body, and we can always try again later if needs be. So it's a difficult one. You need to tread lightly and carefully. I do think meditation is a very powerful tool for people with those kind of problems, but also needs a bit of care as well.
Good to know. I was just wondering, I wanted to touch on a few other things, you know, before we get to your final thoughts. You know, you always hear about the meditation posture, and does the meditation posture matter? I mean, is it important to be in that specific posture we always see? And if so, why?
So it is important in some traditions, but I teach people to meditate in any position that feels comfortable. And in fact, I want them to use a back support, which is a bit unusual in the meditation world, but I want you to be free to completely let go. I don't want you to hold yourself in the present moment. I don't want you to investigate anything. This is a different style of meditation where you get as relaxed and comfortable as possible, but still sitting upright with the head free, because I just don't want you to fall asleep, essentially. So there's still, you're resting as deeply as possible, but without going to sleep. And if you do that, then you'll be very, very rejuvenated after the meditation. And so, yeah, in this tradition, sitting comfortably is absolutely key. But if you want to build mindfulness, then sitting without a back support in a typical yogi position can also be useful, because that will keep you alert, keep you awake. And also sometimes, you know, the discomfort that you feel in those positions, if you lean into it and you investigate it, that can bring interesting insights into the nature of how your mind works, into the nature of your mind-body connection. So it's not the case that you should or shouldn't sit a specific way. It just depends on your practice and what you're looking to get from it. Like I say, most of the people who meditate with me, they just want to calm down and feel good, and they've got busy lives, so they don't want to have to go and sit, you know, in a very hard, difficult position. They want to make it as easy as possible. And also, I want people to be able to do it on the train or in the back of an Uber or in a doctor's waiting room. And so if you practice sitting normally on a chair with a back support at home, then you'll feel like you can do it when you're in the airport or wherever. And that's how busy people tend to fit meditation into their life. Yeah.
So is it important to have your, you know, meditate with your eyes closed, open, and, you know, that it doesn't matter?
In the tradition that I'm teaching in, you want your eyes closed, because we just want to shut out as much sensory input as we can and have an inner experience. And we do that by using a Sanskrit mantra that we use in a very specific way to take us kind of withdraw the senses inwards and kind of leave the world behind for a short time. But there are certainly styles of meditation where you can have your eyes open. And in mindfulness, in fact, you can even go about your daily life doing the normal things that you do, just paying attention to them non-judgmentally. And that will also be a kind of meditative way of moving around in the world, which is perfectly fine. So yeah, it's such a broad range of things that can go on in the meditation world that it just depends what you want from it. Yeah. So a lot of the people that come to me, they want to have this deep inner experience, but it combines quite nicely with doing, when you leave that meditation, you feel calm, you feel rested, you feel good. Then if you go and do some gardening or something, a nice, enjoyable activity, you can also stay in that state by just putting your attention into what you're doing, noticing that the mind wanders and saying, no, thanks, I'm going to carry on being involved and absorbed in the activity I'm doing. And that will build up your concentration, and that will help you get out of the wandering mind and into the present moment. So these things all overlap. It's not like I say, oh, you don't want to be in the present moment, you want to be having the inner experience.
Right.
You can practice both.
Yeah.
You can kind of have it all if you can find the time to fit it in.
Yeah. I think I guess I can see now kind of how you can incorporate different meditation styles. I know what's been helpful for me, being a provider in the urgent care. I mean, it's pretty busy, it's stressful, and it's constant. But what I've found is just having these many mindful moments of like, okay, where I might have used to been just like out of my mind, like, let's go. Now it's more like focusing on like calming myself down, like, you know what, slow, deep breaths, take a few. It really does make a difference on how you handle certain situations or move about in your day, incorporating those maybe mini mindful moments or whatever. I feel like that's beneficial, where I'm more focused on just being mindful, but also the breathing aspect of it.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Anytime you can bring yourself out of the drama of the mind and out of the drama of your life and just reconnect with your body, your presence, you will kind of have like a mini reset. So yeah, as many mindful, conscious breaths as you can fit in a day is what you should do. I would say there's definitely no upper limit for that. Often what I find is that people start out that way and they find it so beneficial that they just want to go more and more and more, or they start out using an app for 5 minutes a day, and then down the line, this is where they find me and they say, oh, okay, I've got this far, but I'm interested to know like how deep this goes. And so someone like myself can show you like the next step.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think that's why I kind of reached out to you. I'm like, I really want to learn more about this and get to, like I mentioned in our email, like the benefits of it health wise, obviously. As you learn to calm down and de-stress, obviously, you're going to see health benefits like, maybe less headaches, lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, all of those positive things. But also, I would love to just get to that spiritual place where I feel like you just are really enjoying life more, living at in a calming mode, not maybe less, not stressing the small steps. Maybe, I don't know what I'm getting at, just, more of that spiritual aspect of it, I think is
Well,
what
sorry, I was going to say, yeah, you've triggered a real thought process there. So in terms of the health benefits, one of the most interesting ones I've found in all my research of this is that meditation can protect your telomeres. So you may know, but in case anybody doesn't know, they are these parts of your chromosomes which protect the chromosome. And so essentially, as we get older, our chromosomes become more and more and more damaged, and that makes us kind of age more quickly and degenerate more quickly, and pretty much just fall apart. And meditation, and it's stress that's causing that. And so because meditation is calming the stress down so much, it protects these telomeres, which protects the chromosomes. And there was a researcher called Elizabeth Blackburn. She won a Nobel Prize for this. She found that meditation can make you between 7 and 12 years biologically younger. So it's incredible how amazing that will be for some people, because it will protect us from Alzheimer's and those other kinds of neurological problems, keep the body young, calm. And so, but on the spiritual side, I just had a funny thought where I thought, I've got into this meditation for those kinds of benefits, but then it's done something to me mentally, which has meant I no longer fear getting old in the same way that I used to. I no longer fear getting ill in the same way that I used to, because I'm just more at ease with my mind, and I feel like whatever comes up, it's just okay. I'll be able to find moments of joy in the present moment, even when, the big things in life are crashing down around me, so to speak. So yeah, I've certainly found that during the hard times in my life, like when my grandmother was very ill and other people in my life who I've lost, meditation became a refuge where I was able to find some peace during times where it didn't seem available in my normal outside life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I can relate to that. I've spent so much time, maybe being fearful of dying young. I've lost both of my parents young. And so I spent a lot of time in that place of fearing getting old and fearing aging and that. And so I guess also that could be why maybe I'm seeking that as well. It's like, I don't want to spend my life worried about all those things. I want to prepare myself to, like you said, just handle things that happen, as it comes along and from a better state, a more calm state of it being at ease with those things. And as far as the telomeres, it's so interesting because, I was studying depression recently, just doing some research on it and different things. And it was actually talking about in the literature how it shortens your telomeres, those things. And so I feel like this should be a more well-known resource for those people experiencing depression and even stress and anxiety, because really, we are shortening our lifespan by living in that state. Now, meditation alone might not be enough for some people, obviously, but it should be, added to it or a consideration to offer people.
Yeah, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head there. Some people will sometimes say to me, meditation can't be that good. The way it's being sold is like it fixes everything. It can't be that magical. How could one simple thing fix everything? But really, it's quite simple. Stress is causing all of these things. And so if you tackle stress, you tackle the root. So if you can remove some stress at least, or maybe not all stress, because we need that to get through our lives, keep us going. We don't just lie in bed all day. So yeah, some stress is good. But yeah, if you can tackle that problem and get rid of the chronic stress, you wipe out so many of your chronic problems. Not all of them, some stuff is in your genes, isn't it? But you will massively cut down on your chance of illness and disease and all the rest of it. So when I discovered that, I suddenly was like, oh wow, okay, so that's why all these articles keep coming out saying meditation supposedly cures a new thing. It's not curing it. It's tackling this root problem that's causing all of these different things. So yeah, it seems very simple to me now when I think of it in those terms.
Yeah, you're so right. I want to jump into real quick. I want to know more about your courses. I've never personally taken a course or an online course other than schooling, obviously, for a long time, but something like this, what could I expect with doing a course like yours? And why is it so helpful to work with a teacher in the beginning like you, as opposed to just jumping out on your, like, what are the benefits?
Okay, so the way I teach it is 4 consecutive 90-minute sessions over 4 days. So the only problem with that is if you're in a different country, you might not be on the right timeline for me. But ideally, yeah, that's what I want, is to do it in person, usually over Zoom, of course, at the moment, since the plague. And the sessions are a mixture of guided meditation, Q&A, and then some theory. And so I can give you the framework to understand what's actually going on in your mind and going on in your experience while you're meditating. I can give you the guided meditation so you know exactly how to do it. But the Q&A is really, really important because everybody, like I was saying earlier, has a different mental state, a different state of consciousness, a different way their mind works, and we'll have a different experience. And so I want to be able to talk to that. I want to be able to finish the meditation and say, okay, anybody have any comments? How was it? What did it feel like? What came up? And that way, pretty much everyone has the right technique, but they need to be reassured. No, that's what happened there is absolutely fine. You just need to keep going. Or, okay, that thing wasn't quite right. You can tweak it in this way. And it's usually the small tweaks that make the biggest difference. I taught somebody recently who had been meditating for 2 years in this style of meditation and felt like they weren't quite getting it. And they read my posts and emails and they thought, what he's describing doesn't quite match my experience, and I don't know why. So she booked to do a course with me, and on day one, she had this amazing, like, mind-blowing experience. And it was just some small thing that she'd been doing slightly wrong for 2 years. She still got benefits, funnily enough. She still thought it was great. But when we made this one tweak, it just completely changed everything. She was just dropping out of her mental state, her thoughts, everything, and just having this really, really blissful, deep experience. And I can't promise that to everyone, but when you do get these people come along every now and again who just get it straight off the bat like that, it's so much fun for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, even though it doesn't necessarily matter if you have lots of thoughts, it is nice to have those experiences where you don't. It's very rejuvenating. So yeah, the small tweaks, I think that's where the teacher comes in handy. That and the sort of social pressure to make you do it and keep you accountable and that kind of thing. Yeah.
With your courses, is it better to have had some experience with meditation, or like could I just jump in with not much experience at all?
My preference is people who have no clue at
Okay.
all about any of it, because then I don't
Sign
have to
up.
unpick any kind of conditioning you've already
Yeah.
got. Yeah, the people who've been doing it a while, they're the ones who ask lots of questions, because I'll say do this, and they'll say, okay, but do we also do this? And I'll say, oh
Yeah.
no, not that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different for everyone. Some
Mhm.
people, they just get it straight away. Some people it's a little bit harder, but
Mhm.
I believe everyone is coming away with something, because
Mhm.
it's just the teaching. It's lasted so long and it's spread so far and wide simply because it works so well.
Yeah. Is there anything that maybe I didn't cover or ask you that you feel is important to know?
Oh, good question. Let me think. Is there anything interesting that I could tell you? I'll tell you something just to end on a fun high note. One of the things I noticed when I was teaching people back in London before the virus, when people were traveling a lot on public transport to very busy, tiring jobs, one of the things I noticed was in the feedback I was getting from people after a short time meditating was they said their sex drive was just going through the roof, you
Wow.
see. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. And so when it was kind of, situations where it was appropriate, if this topic would come up, people would be willing to talk about it. And I found it worked for some people, not for other people. I thought, what's the link here? Why some people get this experience and some not? And what I found was the people who seemed to be having this big uptick in the sex drive were the ones who were never missing the afternoon meditation. And quite often they were doing it on the public transport home, getting home. And it's because they had this rest, which, according to some studies, they say is between 2 and 5 times deeper than blackout sleep. They're getting that on the train on the way home. So they don't arrive completely out of their mind, tired and stressed, and fall asleep in front of the TV. They walk in home and they're like, hi, honey. And they're ready to have, like, a connected evening. And
Yeah.
that leads to, this increase in the sex life. And
Wow.
so, yeah, if anyone's wondering whether or not this may help with that, then yeah, that's something that I stumbled across and I thought was quite funny. Yeah, quite worth sharing. An
That's
unintended benefit.
yeah, no. So we all need to wait out in our cars before coming in if we don't commute that way. That's great to know, honestly. It's so helpful. Well, thank you so much for talking. And, so what's the first start for somebody? What do you recommend? Like, how do we get started?
So it's up to you. Have a little think about what you'd like to get out of meditation. And then from that, you could work out what it is going to be the practice for you. If you're looking for some extreme spiritual highs and, um, visions and all of that crazy kind of other dimension experiences, then those people tend to work with the breath and the energy centers in the body. It's
Mhm.
called Kundalini. Other people, they just want to be more present, so they'll focus on the breath and body sensations. And other people want to experience what I teach, which is sort of deep turning inwards and going deep into this sort of your inner world, and kind of leaving it all behind, having a little vacation from the mind and coming back feeling full of energy, creativity, and rested, so that you can join back into your life. So yeah, think about what you want from the meditation and then work out what style is going to fit after that.
Okay, great. Where can everybody follow you? What's your Instagram handle? Because I think everybody should follow you. I love your posts, anything from the quotes, but you give really informative posts about, people's questions and all kinds of stuff. So where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram as That Meditation Guy. So if you just type that in the search, you should find me. And my website is delvedeep.com if you want to have a look at that.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a great conversation. I love learning about all of this.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.